last night Stephanie Furman showed us a slide that talked about the motivation for students to study environmental issues. And I'm wondering what it is that brings students into your programs in China and in South Africa in particular, and what is it that motivates, I assume, young people to work in your organization in Oaxaca as well. I mean, my instinct is that there's environmental and social justice issues are very intertwined in all cases, and I'm curious to what extent an appreciation or love or attachment to nature per se is motivating your students to be involved, or whether it's more of a question of social justice.
Maybe Zarina can answer that first, and then we'll...
Sure. In terms of what motivates our students, I think that a lot of our students who come from the hard sciences are students, like students who come from APES, etc., and geology to come and study geography, are motivated by an appreciation of nature, who've had exposures as young kids. We, in South Africa, as I said on my presentation, we have got vast areas of wilderness which are incredibly beautiful, and I think that this is quite inspiring for students. And at the same time, so I think that that's one thing that motivates one cohort of students. Another cohort of students are probably motivated by the environmental degradation within which they live on a daily basis, and about trying to improve the living conditions within which they live. So they're motivated by a very different set of factors. Then again, as you've correctly highlighted, I mean, the issue of justice is a very important one in a country that is highly politicized with high levels of inequality. I think that, Eben actually asked me this morning at breakfast about, how did I end up in the environmental arena? And I did think sort of, well, actually I hadn't completely honestly answered the question, because really the questions of justice is a big reason why I've entered this arena, because of the inequalities in South Africa, and justice and in the environmental arena has become one within which we can exercise questions of issues around democracy and civil rights, etc. So I think that that's a whole other area of motivation. And so if you look at just these three things that I've highlighted, they're very different motivating factors. So how one tailors a program as well to satisfy the needs of people who are coming from very different motivating factors is also incredibly difficult. But the other point that I want to make is that I think that even though students are motivated by a particular set of impetuses, when they come into the program, into geography, I think we try to expose students to all three of these areas, looking at brown environmental issues, looking at green environmental issues, looking at social and environmental justice. That students who have come in with a particular motivation around the biophysical environment, for instance, by the end of their degrees have shifted their thinking quite a lot about why they want to remain in this particular field. One of the things that motivates a number of our students, if we ask them in first year, why have you come to do, as an undergraduate, why have you come in to do this particular program? A lot of them see being an environmental consultant as a very important vocation for when they leave the university, because there's a big scope for environmental consulting through environmental impact assessments, the need for environmental impact assessments. However, by the time they leave the program, they might well have a very different set of values and things that they want to pursue. So I think the program itself also shapes the motivator.
I'm Hilary Anja, DCEP 09. A question goes to Joanne Doze. One of the hallmarks of environmental sustainability is how do people manage their resources, their wealth, energy. The way you describe Oaxaca, the society has rural characteristics. And the way the people think and the way they do things doesn't reflect that of the US, or it's not a replica of the US system. How do you, in your organization, help to influence people to change behavior in order to embrace this new way of life, to manage their resources?
Well, that leads us to these paradigms I was mentioning before. And I think economy is very important, and I think we cannot skip it in any background, and that includes Oaxaca. But so we need to take certain measures that have economic sense. For example, in terms of water, we need to put certain price to services. We will go to that again later. But at the same time, we have to clearly define limits for economy, because we cannot put everything in economical terms. So in this change of paradigm, we need to go back, for example, to the idea of nature as something very valuable and priceless in a way, and not go in the direction of commodification. That's what is happening. Because we tend to think that if something has a high price, then we will protect it. And that's not necessarily the case. And I could give some examples if we had more time.
Thank you. Okay, I think we'll end this session.